What's going on, all you wonderful A plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another Superman and Lois review. Sorry, My Adventures with Superman review. Got the two shows with Superman that I have reviewed on this channel confused for a moment there. But regardless, I am back again with another review for this show. And if you hear any background music or anything like that, that is because currently we have outside lands going on here in the city, and I am like literally just a few blocks away from it. So you'll probably hear whatever whatever band it's currently playing. You might just kind of hear that in the background. I apologize, it is what it is. But all that being said, let's get into this episode and talk about it. So the episode, of course, takes place a little bit after the previous episode, with now Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen knowing the identity knowing the identity of Clark Kent as Superman. You get kind of a cute moment where Clark is showing Jimmy and Lois his, everything he knows basically about his origin, including, some tech from his planet that was, of course, we've seen before, the tech that kind of gave him his costume. And that's, he basically tells them everything that he knows, which is practically nothing. But the next day, Lois and Clark are about to go on their very first date, and Clark wants everything to just go smoothly and normal. But unfortunately for him, he gets tricked by none other than Mr. Mxyzptlk. Yes, Mxyzptlk is in this episode. Mxyzptlk, I forget. Something Ptlk. The basically the magical creature from another dimension. We've seen him in so many different different versions of this, but this is the most anime looking version we've had of this character. But it's still the same character regardless, even though he has a very different design. My personal headcanon, because it is stated that every version that we see of Mxyzptlk is supposed to be the same version. So, for example, even though he looks different in the DC animated universe, so the Superman anime series Justice League, it is technically supposed to be the same version as him. I just go with the assumption that he likes to change form depending on the universe that he's in, and because he's in a universe that is very much a very anime style universe, he chose to have a more anime looking form. Kind of gives me vibes of Majin Buu and Beerus, but basically he tells Superman that Lois has been captured and he needs his help in order to save her. But then we cut to Lois Lane and see that she has not been captured, but she is approached by 4 other versions of Lois Lane from the multiverse, who tell Lois Lane that Superman is working with Mxyzptlk and they need her help to stop him. Something I really like, as an Easter egg that they do here is we see different versions of Clark through Mxyzptlk as he's like changing his design over and over. And one of them that we see is, of course, the DC animated universe version of Clark Kent, which, of course, growing up, that was my Superman pretty much. When it came to the Batman animated series, the Superman animated series, and of course, especially Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Also, Static Shock and Batman Beyond, all of those shows, I just grew up loving them. I wish that Teen Titans could have been connected to that universe, but they kind of decided to go in their own direction with Teen Titans, which is totally fine. It was still a great show. It just a couple of tweaks here and there with the continuity, and it could have fit right into that whole universe. What could have been, in other words. But regardless, Superman finds out that he's actually been tricked and that Mxyzptlk just needs him in order to break into this place that is apparently teleportation proof. I have a lot of questions of the science behind that, but regardless, his true intention is to get his hat that basically gives him all his powers again. And we see that the Loises in this Council of Loises, kind of similar to the Council of Wells, Council of Ricks, Council of Reeds, all the different types of councils of one person you have. You now have one with the Lois Lanes, but they think that this Superman might be evil, so they try to shoot him down with a kryptonite blaster. It doesn't work because this Superman, he's one that knows how to get back up after getting knocked down, and he does eventually help the different Lois Lanes capture Mxyzptlk, and then they escape because these Lois Lanes do not trust Superman. But at the very end of the episode, Mxyzptlk escapes from custody from the different Lois Lanes, and reveals to Lois that there are different versions of Superman in which he actually does turn out to be evil, and we do see a couple that are very familiar. One in particular is, of course, the Red Sun Superman. I definitely thought that was a very cool Easter egg right there. It would have been kind of cool also if we had the Superman from Morgan Edge's universe, or no, not his universe, but from that Superman and Lois universe where John Henry Irons comes from in that show. It would have been kind of a cool Easter egg if they had it there, but they didn't, which is totally fine. I'm pretty sure when it comes to the continuity of the multiverse, they're probably just sticking strictly to animated universes, if even that. But we do have not just like kind of Easter eggs when it comes to the Superman animated series, but also, of course, to some original Clark Kent designs that we get from like really old comic books to kind of some more modern comic books. I do really like all these Easter eggs kind of there as a fun nod. I do have to give a nitpick, though, to kind of their multiverse rules when it comes to this episode in particular, because when you're going with the multiverse and you're establishing that it's connected to, other DC properties out there, and then you kind of say that there's this whole like society of Loises that we've never heard of, that's where my suspension of disbelief kind of comes into place, because, we've never heard of this Council of Lois from any other animated adaptation of Superman or any other comic book adaptation of Superman. I also wasn't really a big fan of the idea that all of these different Lois Lanes were basically willing to go full on Ben Affleck Batman on Superman, and by which I mean there's a line in Batman v Superman I'm sure that everyone remembers because it was in the trailer, but it's basically Bruce Wayne saying he has the power to wipe out all of humanity. If there's even a small chance of that happening, we have to take it as an absolute certainty. I always hated that line. That's the most un-Batman line that you could possibly have. So it's weird having a whole Council of Lois Lanes that also kind of go with that philosophy. They have no reason to believe that this version of Superman is evil. They have every reason to believe that he's just been tricked by Mxyzptlk, because that's what he does. He's a trickster god being, basically. So seeing them just wanting to go immediately and just try to shoot him down with a kryptonite blaster, it just seems very out of place for a Council of Lois Lanes to do. And I was hoping there was going to be some explanation that they don't actually represent a majority of Lois Lanes out there, but there isn't that explanation though. We see that there's an entire base for different Lois Lanes, and they even give a shout out to, of course, going back to the DC animated universe, they shout out to that version of Lois Lane because we see a statue of her. But there's nothing to like necessarily indicate that this is a small portion of Lois Lanes, because they live in this huge base that could feel like an entire basically city of Lois Lanes. They live in like a base like that. So it kind of makes me think that this is like in this universe they're trying to say that Lois Lanes throughout the multiverse are willing to cross that line, even if there's only a small chance that they have to. To me, that just is not a very Lois Lane like thing to do. Maybe sometime down the line, if we visit this Council of Loises later on, they might rectify that by saying that it is a very small portion of Lois Lanes. This does not include a big portion of Lois Lanes throughout the multiverse. I'm hoping we get something like that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see in that area. I did really love how they use the multiverse as a way to foreshadow certain aspects of Superman going forward, especially when it comes to the Superman lore. One area in particular is when it came to name dropping Krypton, and this being the first time that Superman has heard the name Krypton, learning for the first time the name of his home planet. It kind of reminds me of something they did with Adventure Time. Now, I didn't really keep up with Adventure Time back in the day, but this is just things that I hear that have happened in the show Adventure Time, where it's like Finn loses his arm at some point in the show, and what was cool is that they kind of foreshadow that, because there are they also do like the multiverse storylines in Adventure Time, and there are apparently episodes where they visited universes where apparently Finn was missing an arm. So I do like it when you really play around with the multiverse in that areas and you foreshadow certain things that we could be seeing potentially down the line, and I think they they did a cool job of doing that in this episode. So overall, guys, just another really fun episode. Not amazing. I had some nitpicks here and there. Again, when it comes to multiversal storylines, you do kind of risk making kind of plot holes, not for your show in particular, but when it comes to other DC properties in particular, other established DC universes out there, you kind of risk making a plot hole for all of those shows. And I think they kind of did with the whole Council of Lois's. I do think there was a little bit of a plot hole when it came to that. Again, I think they should have just established that the Lois Lanes that we see in there were pretty much the entirety of the Council of Lois's, but they kind of implied that there are a lot more out there, and so that's kind of my big nitpick. But other than that, fun episode, not great. Didn't hit me as much as the previous 2 episodes, but still fun. But overall, guys, at the end of the day, those are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.